Hello, everybody. This is Andrei, and you are on the Marketing Innovation Podcast Show. Our special guest for today is Sam Ovett, who is a co-founder of Mobile Pocket Office and is leading the way in helping new and established businesses augment their human and technological resources to leverage growth and streamline productivity. And today, as we are just kicking off 2021, new year, we'll look at how to best automate business and marketing processes this year in order to have your business or your department bring better results and rock it basically through the year. So, Sam, how are you? How's everything going? Very happy to have you on the show.
Doing good. Can't complain, thankfully. And, even though the pandemic is raging right now, I am doing good, and everybody wants to get online still. So that is keeping us very busy.
Nice. You also have the weather to go with it. I see the skis in the background.
Yep, the skis are right here, 8 miles from the nearest ski area. So we keep very busy outside along the way. And so it's a nice way to break up being on the computer with going outside and playing, So we're like 8,500 feet for, what would that be in meters for the metric listeners?
Oh, I'm not very good with these translations either, but it's pretty high, isn't it?
It is pretty high. 2 meters. I'm going to Google it real quick. It's 2,590 meters.
Oh, that's cold.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So it's cold and high, but it's beautiful. We're up here in the mountains in just above Boulder, Colorado in the United States.
Nice. Super. So I think to, build a report and get people to know you really, let's Tell us a bit about you. Tell us a bit what you do with with the company, with your father, with the projects that you run at this point in time. Let's hear.
Yeah, so I think I'll share my background for a bit because I think it's interesting and it's a little different. Mm-hmm. I went to school for environmental sciences, and then after that started into the world of the outdoors and ended up guiding and being a professional athlete in the outdoor world as a whitewater kayaker. And funnily enough, what I realized in that, as you're a professional athlete, that primary aspect of it, what you realize is as a professional athlete, one of the primary things you are when you're sponsored by different companies is you're part of the marketing team. Mm-hmm. You may have physical talents, but really they're physical talents that you're videoing or posting about or sharing what you're doing. And you really are part of the marketing team. And so there's a couple of things that came out of that I pulled over into the business world when I made my transition a little while ago now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a little bit unusual, but I think people can relate to that from the physical things they do. And if they also look at that. And then that brought me into the world of realizing, wow, there's so much that could be automated from the marketing side, because the hard work in marketing is done in getting people interested. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like that's the creative work. That's what the athletes are doing. That's the stuff that's, you're thinking, what can I do to get people interested in my company, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what your company is, you got to get people interested in. That largely can't be automated super well. And we talk a lot about automation at our company, Mobile Pocket Office, because our whole focus is to help people be human where it counts and otherwise automate, mm-hmm. right? You free up time, free up resources, allow you to scale, all those wonderful things that we talk about when we talk about automation. But somebody's got to do that marketing work to get the interest going. And then once you have that lead, it's a matter of what do you do with it? So that's the background. That's where I came from at it. And also the other thing we found out that I think is interesting, because I was participating in these very high risk activities, right? Where I could die or get very seriously injured or drown. I was paddling off of large waterfalls and down steep riverbeds. And what's interesting about that is if you take that and if people think about what are the things that I do, right? Do I do anything outdoors that's kind of a higher risk activity, right? Take those lessons and apply them to business, because you wouldn't go jump into something that was super scary or super big for you without stepping up incrementally. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing we do when we think about business with people. When people want to make changes in automation, don't make massive change all at once. Take it step by step, do little pieces, and then track the effectiveness so that you don't tank your business along the way. Because a lot of people are going from a fully manual business almost entirely to automating pieces of it. But you got to be careful, right? You got to do it step by step, because if you don't and you automate everything, you may realize, wow, those human touches that we just automated had a significant impact on bringing new business or referral business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and also if you were to expand this, there was a saying which I don't remember exactly, but I'm just gonna say the idea of it, which was to do with automating the right or the wrong things. So you have to really be able to choose what you automate, because you can automate and amplify the right thing or the wrong thing, and you don't want that. So definitely getting it into small steps and choosing wisely, I think, is very, very important when you look at revamping.
And look at the risk too, right? What's the risk to your business if it goes wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you assess it and you go, what's the risk if it goes wrong? If the risk is low and you want to try it, go ahead. If the risk is high, try it in a smaller segment of your business with a certain segment of prospects and customers. And then if it goes well, apply it to the rest of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so take that experience of judging risk that people do in the rest of their lives and apply it to business. I think it's a really good way to roll new, exciting process and automation out, especially when it comes to following up with all that hard work you've done on the marketing and getting those leads and that interest in your business to happen. Now you got to get them into customers, right? And you got to fulfill the promise. And then hopefully, if you do it right, you'll get referrals. And I can we have a framework that people can use that we work with folks that I can share. But that's a bit of the background. It's different. So I like to share it because it also means that, we work with businesses across all different industries and we help them become very successful in what they do and give them the ability to scale and track their effectiveness of their marketing. And what I think is really interesting there is that, you don't have to come from a traditional business background. You'll learn it along the way. If you're interested, you'll pick it up. You got to do the work. You got to figure it out. But I just like to share that anybody can come from any background in this stuff and really pick it up if you're motivated to figure it out.
Sounds good. So let's actually, before diving straight into it, what's your view on 2020? Like, what did you think has really happened in terms of businesses, using technology, automating stuff, online things?
So I think a couple of things have popped out for me in 2020. Obviously, it's been really challenging for businesses who've been regulated out of business, right? Hey, you got to shut it down. That's tough, right? That's a challenge where you can't open your storefront. There are alternatives though. And for the businesses that are adapting quickly, the technology is more readily available than ever to adapt. Because I think the one thing we all realize is, wow, if we can't be in person, right? Because let's just be there's a pandemic, it's real, it's affected the world and shut down a lot of businesses in the traditional way they operated. However, there are a lot of opportunities to adapt, but you have to be quick about it and you have to make that transition to stay with it. What we realized in 2020 is that many businesses that didn't think they could be online are now online. They generate revenue digitally.
Mm-hmm.
They do something or they've adapted their process to become digital. And so what I think is really exciting from this, obviously there's a lot of pain, but what's really exciting is it's brought so much of the world online because they had to. And it's forced people to get online that otherwise weren't. So now the number of people who are familiar with using the internet and doing business digitally and are comfortable with that has gone up enormously, which also means your customer base has gone up enormously of the prospects and people who are comfortable working with you. People aren't afraid of it anymore. They don't have a choice. It's the new way of operating. So there's another piece there. And the other piece is that you can automate stuff. You can create revenue streams digitally. And even like a brick and mortar company that, like, for example, a restaurant, think about the to-go order experiences and how much those have improved. If you just think about that single focused aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's way better now than it ever was. It's way easier because its innovation was forced, and everybody had to adopt it. The other aspect of it that I think is really important to recognize is people still crave human interaction. And I think that's the biggest lesson of 2020 is that automation, digital stuff can totally change the way that you get revenue, right? It can secure your place in business to make it so you're stable, no matter if you can open your doors or not physically. But people are still hungry for the human touch, right? And we don't necessarily, that touch doesn't have to be physical in person. But the more we can do to create a personalized, lovely, great human experience where we are showing that we care about that customer that came to us, that human that came to us and chose to spend their money with us and use our services or buy our products, and I'm talking in general now,
Mm-hmm.
that is where you can win over the competition because now everybody's online. I mean, not everybody, but like majority of businesses are online, even businesses we didn't think would be online. It's the experience that makes the difference. So if you can use technology and automation to create a better experience, not only for you internally to make business easier, but for the person doing business with you and make it more human and like show sincerely that you care more about that customer, you're going to keep winning that business. And people are going to keep referring business to you. And that, I think, is what we learned in 2020 is that there was this massive push for automation, right? And it was like we were getting humans out of the equation. But what we realized is like we need to be around other people. We need to feel the energy that comes from people caring about other humans.
Mm-hmm. So then,
and if you can automate that into your process, then you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really about finding that sweet spot, isn't it? Of okay, this is everything that we can automate, and this is why it's going to be good for us. And then it's hold on a second, maybe 70% down the line, actually, we need to deliver that personalized ad or that personal email or that nice follow up in order to facilitate the next steps in the direction that we want to. Really.
Yeah, or I'll give you a really cool example, right? There's a company that we did recently a webinar with about this called Ignite Post. And the founder's name is Arian. You should interview him. He's a cool guy. And he started a service that allows you to send handwritten thank you notes. I have one here at my desk because I was...
yes, I heard about one of these ones in the UK as well.
It looks like this. Yeah, there's a couple out there for sure. It comes like this. It looks so totally handwritten. My name on it. And then you can put your logo here. It's not a pitch for it. I just happen to have it in my desk because we did that webinar. Mm-hmm. And this is what the letter looks like. But here's the thing, right? Does that look handwritten to you?
Yep, it does.
It's completely automated. So you're taking the value of and people will have differing opinions on this and it's controversial, which is fine. But you're taking the value of creating a handwritten letter, which shows that you care. And this doesn't mean you care any less, but it just allows you to do it at scale and touch all of your customers consistently. So if you work that in to the automation to where it goes out at the right point in the customer journey, imagine if every time someone bought, you sent them a thank you note and it was handwritten and you had the option of typing in what you wanted it to send and then it automatically sent, like you didn't have to write it, stamp it, go to the mailbox, do all that work. It just went. And then you followed up and said, how are you liking the thing that you just bought, right? Follow up 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later. Automated. So that's what we talk about. We say like, keep the human touch, but automate it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Cool. Like that's the beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a cool example.
It is. Actually, I was trying to remember where I heard about this first, and it was a B2B tech company, and they used to do this. They weren't doing this post-purchase. I think they were doing this just before closing the deal, and I think they were
Sure.
using.
Yeah, it can go a bunch of ways, right? Like you can insert it into the process.
Yeah. I think it was something like sending these letters, and then the letters were containing also a code for free coffee from another partner. But
Absolutely.
yeah, just and I mean, it was phrased in a way that it was like, oh yeah, I know we're gonna be working together, so this is just the coffee that we'd have together right now, signing the deal, kind of thing. But yeah, it was cool, and I'm happy that you brought this up because I think mainly now, since we don't meet that much anymore, things like these are probably not happening very often. So you'd get a lot of
No,
emails.
think about like when was the last time you got a handwritten thank you note? Like just like stop for a second. Whether it was a birthday card or something, not just from a company, but when was the last time you got a handwritten note from someone?
Yeah,
What was it? Do you remember it?
unless it was like a close person to me. I got one from a company that was a business partner at that time, and we are still in very good relations.
And how did it make you feel when you got that?
Well, it was cool. It was unexpected. It was a Christmas actually a note, and it was last year. And it was from Bart, who was on the podcast in our first episodes together. So yeah, that was cool. But that was
and you remember it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now think to like, for example, not that you shouldn't send email, right? Email is a very powerful marketing tool, like, and conversion tool. It's awesome. But can you remember the last email you got from the same person?
Well, it was to do with work. I mean,
Yeah,
it was certainly something around that. But yeah, there's a fair point here. So definitely.
yeah. So it's like the power of the experience is more impactful when we can do those things that are physical and human. But if you can automate them, then they happen perfectly in the process every time, and that's the cool part.
So let's try to look then, because I'm excited to have a dialogue here, because you have the sort of processes background, and I know that you guys have a lot of projects on helping businesses better their processes around automating sales and marketing things like this. We also have a lot of projects that focus mostly on marketing, but then when it's about sales, like we don't work with sales teams directly, but I know that you guys do. So it'd be really interesting for the people tuning in today, as they are just going back into work, and maybe they are having their all hands meetings, trying to improve the way that they work together as teams, as well as as colleagues through the year. What would be some common cases that you think are easy to optimize and then maybe automate in a certain percentage? Like take a medium-sized business. Let's say it can be tech, it can be SaaS, it can be services, and just let's go for some of the maybe case studies or scenarios that you encounter on a more frequent basis, and let's see how we can inspire people that are listening to us right now to instigate some changes in their organizations as well.
So I think that I love that way of looking at it. And I'll give you we'll do some case studies, and I'll give you a framework that people can go and do right now with their companies to actually do this. Because the main thing we look for is, where are the disconnects, right? So if marketing's doing all this work, I'm going to put it in context and I'm going to apply the framework. But if marketing's doing all this work to go out and attract interest, and hopefully they're good and they're also like capturing those leads and then at that point, that's usually where it starts to break down, right? There's a focus on going out. If you have a marketing department, getting that interest. But then when the lead comes in your database, whatever you're using, right? You could be using Entreport, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, like whatever, MailChimp, like whatever you're using to get that person's information on your website, right? Digitally somehow. It's, what do you do at that point? Does it just sit in your database? Does it go through a process and then get scored and handed off to the sales team at the right time with information that's valuable to them that they can act on. And so it's looking for where those disconnects happen. And then it's kind of doing that all the way through. So if we take a step back, I'm going to give people a framework to do this. And I'll give some examples of how we've done it before with people, so people can start to think, okay, this is how I would do it for myself. Mm-hmm. The first thing you have to do in every business, there's 5 pieces, no matter what industry you're in. It's applicable everywhere. You have to attract business. You have to convert that business to leads and sales. Then you got to fulfill whatever you promised with the sale. Otherwise, it's a quick way to go out of business. And then you've got to, after you've fulfilled it, that's where most people stop. The next is you delight a customer. This is what good companies do, right? And they give you upsells that can get more out of the product or service, or they give you some training, or they share complimentary things, or they ask you, creative ways that you're using their product or service. They share with other people that are using it. So like, you got to delight the customer. And then most people, this happens if their product or service is good, it just happens, but it could be better. And that rate that it happens at could be higher. Referrals. So attract, convert, fulfill, delight, refer. Those are the 5 pillars, if you will, that you got to optimize. So that's your big picture systems that run a business. Then you've got to go in and look at those and go, what are the processes within those? What do we do to make those happen? And this is where you can start to identify the disconnects or the opportunities. So the first thing that you do is, and this is really easy thing to do, but it's also kind of hard because you have to have everybody do it. You give everybody just a spreadsheet and you say, okay, for the next 2 or 3 days, write down everything you do. About every 15 minutes, check in. Have you done something different? Have you done an action? So if you're marketing, what are you doing, right? Are you publishing ads? Are you running ads? Are you setting something up? Are you making a UTM? If you're converting, what are the different pieces that you're doing to convert? Even if some of it's automated, usually we have some kind of thank you email in there. Welcome when somebody opts in automatically. If you don't have that, then you're, starting base level, but a lot of people have that at a minimum. And then to fulfill, what are all the processes that go into fulfilling? Do you delight your customers? If you do, what do you do? Right? Even if it's not, even if you just have to write down the things you do, and you'll start to see you have patterns of process. And then refer. When you do ask for referrals or get referrals, what do you do? What's the process? So once you have those over 2 or 3 days is a good starting point. Now you have an idea of the different busy work, the tasks that make up your business.
Okay, guys, so we just had a little tech glitch, but actually now we have 2. So you remember Sam here, who was with me just a minute ago, and now he made us all a surprise, and he brought on his business partner, but also not only business partner, but father as well, because Sam and Josh work together. They run the company together, and they are father and son. So Josh, hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's like that whole idea of like bring your child to work day, but it's the reverse. It's like bring your parents to work day. And so, Josh is a ball of energy and he's super fun and he tells stories like nobody other. That's kind of, why we brought him on, because he can relate these case studies of what we've done for people better than anybody I know. So I think that'll provide a lot of context for how people can dive in and like grab onto this and do it themselves and start down the process themselves.
Sweet. Let's kick it then. So basically, Sam, where we left it a minute ago, Josh, where we left it a minute ago, was looking at the daily activity of you, your team, etc., like of a person, and then trying to work out the processes. So Sam, I'll pass it back over to you, and then we can expand from this. And Josh, feel free to interrupt us.
Oh, don't worry, we're not afraid to talk and contribute.
Cool.
So to pick up where we left off is the idea that basically that, you have these 5 areas of your business that you're focusing on: attract, convert, fulfill, delight, and refer. And you have to look at those how they work together, and then independently, the systems that are involved inside of each of one of those, and then the processes that make up the systems. And then from there, you figure out, based on what I've learned, and remember we talked about that personal activity log, going in and making note of what you actually do to run the business, the busy work of business, that brings you to the step of what could I actually automate, which is where I'd like to actually Josh to pick up and talk about some of the examples of where we've done this with people, because here's the deal. That is all well and good to discuss it in that way, but it's pretty high level, and it doesn't feel like, hey, Josh's dogs are here too. It's like extra special. And so I'm sure my dog will come in at some point. And so, we live in a world where everybody's working from home and you got all the beautiful animals, and it's wonderful. And so that said, one of the things that I think is important is to understand in context how this can work for you and what you actually do with it. So Josh, why don't you pick up, I think one of the most recent examples that's I feel like is really applicable to a lot of businesses is the case with Como Consulting, an educational firm that does consult, like they help children with their education. So it's kind of like tutoring, but they have a process and they have a lot of volume, and they were limited in their ability to scale. So Josh, I'm going to let you take it from there. And that's the key.
So just to kind of give you a little background with it, I got a call and said, hey, we heard you're an expert at this. And I said, thank you. And, how can I help? So I need a little thing. I said, okay, what's the thing? I get all these inquiries that come in, right? Marketing. In other words, her advertising and promotion is working, and now it's working too well. So she was getting 20 to 30 emails a day from her lead magnet through an email. It would come in with all the details, and it was like about 20 different questions that people filled out because they were in that part of the funnel. She's doing advertising to a webinar to an appointment. Mm-hmm. Pretty standard consulting world, and somebody who's doing services or as opposed to products, and it's going gangbusters. She teaches children. Guess what? In this time that we're in, children need lots of help. So they do some really cool coaching. So she says, well, I have this problem. I want the data to go into my database, my CRM system, so I don't have to copy and paste all these. Imagine copying and pasting 20 to 30 bits of data into one by one, every time a lead comes in your database, so that when you actually then had the call with the person, all that's right in front of you. That's pretty straightforward and simple, but there was a copy and paste. And then it was like, then I need to send them a contract, and then I need to enroll them in all these different pieces of my process, different systems like, Thinkific and their project management system and a few others. So let's just sum that up in real one quick thing. And it is, she had to take the lead, put it in the system, then take that, then have the appointment. And then once they bought, take money, do contracts, and get them all inserted on those stuff. Well, she was shy about 90 hours a week of being able to get it all done. Little problem, literally. So our first step was, okay, let's make your lead go from your web, when they go to get an appointment and that you ask them these questions, mm-hmm. Let's put that straight in the database. That sounds pretty straightforward, but that wasn't happening. So now I eliminated all that copy and paste, boom, that was gone. And then we set up the processes to automatically enroll them and everything else after they paid money. And she was taking money in one system and then putting the information in another. So I said, why don't we do this? Get the information, have the appointment, take money online while you're on the phone with them, and then check off the box that says enroll them. And that sends them a contract, which they sign, it comes back, it merges all the information around, signs them up into 4 different systems, assigns all the work to the primary person who's responsible for that, who she's assigning that account, and sets up everything in less than 30 seconds. poof. That little process I just described took 40 hours of work every week off her plate.
That's a very good time.
Literally, I mean.
And Josh, let's talk about the alternative, right? Let's say she didn't do this. If she didn't figure out automation, what was her alternative to scale, to grow the business?
Throw more people at it, which means throw more money at it, throw more training at it, manage more people. It's not wrong with anything with the people part, but all of these tasks, and they were literally tasks, were something that was A or B, or done or not. There wasn't anything that you had to interact as a human with. Somebody just had to do it. It would just, to onboard a new client, all these steps was roughly 30 to 45 minutes after the sales call. If you're doing 6 of those a day, your day's shot.
So just to get into the details of how or what you guys used to implement this process, because I think it's it's an optimization that can be done for many companies in general, like this sales element of, like getting the inbound lead and getting it into the CRM and then onboarding it and following up and etc. It's a process that usually for everybody takes some time and is automated, maybe more or less. So in this case, it wasn't automated at all. What were the exact steps, or maybe if you can share some tools that you used in order to implement this automation? Maybe some people on the show can actually look at them and see if they are fit for the businesses, or try to get inspired of how they could work around their internal processes.
So the most important thing, okay, the tool, there are plenty of tools. We'll talk about the various tools. So we pull tools that we need out of anywhere to create whatever is needed to do. But let's talk about the bigger picture, okay? I come from a manufacturing background. There's a thing called lean manufacturing. There's a process called Kaizen. It's a Japanese process. It's very well known in manufacturing. We apply that to software, okay? Kaizen means continuous improvement. You're always looking for a way to make things better. Because software always change, things get faster, easier, better, whatever. Your processes change, they get bigger, more complex, but you always have to look at your continuous improvement. And then the second thing, the terminology in Japanese is called pokuyoku, okay? And that's
important.
This one's very important. Figure out where it breaks so it doesn't break anymore, okay? So the idea here is, and I'll use this comment, is if I hand you a bag of chocolates, right? Let's say M&Ms, and you put it in your pocket, but we never sealed the chocolates, and you were sitting down, the chocolates rolled out, whatever. It's a hot day. Now you got a mess in your pocket, right? So the way that you prevent that, say, okay, how do I fix that? A Ziploc bag, at least the chocolates will stay in the bag. Even if they melt, they don't get in your on your clothes and in your keys and all that stuff. So thinking about what happens in the process that can muck it up, because then if your process gets mucked up, you have rework, you have, people don't like the experience they had. It wasn't good. And then if you can't do it right the first time, when are you going to find time to do it again if you're so busy? So the idea here is always be looking at your processes, right? And there's a couple of tools. These are tools to think about. One is, if you hire somebody new, it is the greatest opportunity to figure out what's screwed up in your organization. Why? Because you got to teach that person exactly what to do, step by step. And most new employees go, after you tell them everything you do, they sometimes go, no, why do you do that when you could just, why do you walk around that table and go over there and do this when you can just walk straight that way? And the usual statement is, because that's the way we've always done it. They don't take the time. You're so busy, you don't take the time to look at each little, you got to break it down to section. You can't do this as a big monster. You can't eat the elephant all at one time, one piece at a time. So you look at a piece of that process and you improve it. Okay. Make sure that sometimes you may not know what you could improve it with. That's why you hire people like us sometimes to say, okay, what could be done? What are you doing now? What's available? So you need sometimes some outside input. If otherwise you're kind of breathing your own exhaust. You don't know what you don't know, so you kind of do it the same way. So some of the simple tools that we use, okay, one is called diagrams.net. Okay, it's a diagramming program. It's free, so you can go out and experiment with it, but you can actually make a diagram. And this is going to be on video when we do this. This is going to be, I'm just saying is we can show you
when it's published.
Yeah, when it's published.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be a video when it's published?
It's also going to be a video. So we have YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple, everything.
Right, great. So if you happen to be looking at this as a video, I'll have Sam pull up diagrams.net.
I'm pulling one up right now.
Yeah, so you can see what it is and what one looks like. So in the grand scheme of things, right, some of our customers, when I say, describe your process to me and write it down and maybe, on a piece of paper or whatever. And sometimes I get something that looks more like a flea flicker football, play, lines and arrows and all that stuff. And I'm going, okay, walk me through it. And this is an example of, this happens to be a online university, accredited university. And this is all the processes that they run people through to enroll and go through courses in the university. This all used to be manual, step by step. They had a team. Now it all happens automatically. And now their team, about 5 people, were freed up to do a lot of other things.
And this is just the enrollment aspect of the process. These are different pieces of it. And for those who aren't watching this, we're just looking at diagrams online of actual process that we built for people so that to represent very clearly what does the outcome of this stuff actually look like? How do you do it? And it's really, you think about it like a pinball machine. You go, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And you document all of it so that you know really clearly what's going on. Go ahead, Josh.
But there's one problem with a pinball machine.
Yeah.
It never happens the same way twice. Okay? And in business, you want consistent processes that happen the same way every time because you have a consistent outcome. Mm-hmm. Like plumbing, all right? And I use this phrase, some people cringe. When you press the lever, you expect it to flush. If that process doesn't happen, nobody's happy, right? When we talk about a process, is making sure that when you fix one part of the process, okay, you also then think about, okay, this part's working really good now. Look downstream, because now you've caused a problem for the person who's now has to catch what you've done. So, if in this case, like with Como, we increased the process by almost 10-fold. Now, I knew what the next part was, because the comment people say is, boy, you're already 2 steps ahead of me. He says, yeah, I know when we fix this one, where that's going. Now, who's responsible for it? Because that's that's the next person to say, I got too much now. What do I do? Okay, how do we automate that? So there's a cause and effect when you improve things, okay? It's like you have a big diameter pipe going into a small one. You're going to increase the pressure, and it may not be good. Or if it's not good, it's going to leak, and things are going to, all the good work you did here is going to fall on the floor over here. So, the idea that those tools are, and one simple tool that we use, it's really crazy simple. Through the Kaizen process, and we send people this on Amazon, is literally a roll of brown paper, okay, that you can tape on your wall so you don't mess up your wall, and then a bunch of multicolored sticky notes. And each of these sticky notes have a different color because they mean something different, like the beginning of a process, the end of a process, a transition from a process, or this is an action. So we actually have a document and a link to, you buy it on Amazon. I'm not a reseller of it, but, you buy a box of sticky notes, of certain colors, and then you have these, and then you can actually then line them up and work as a team.
That's in here.
Yeah, there you go. There. Each one has a different meaning, so everybody's on the same page. And that way you can literally stick them up and then make a process that people can follow it, because the sticky notes, you can move them around. And then you're just writing on them, or, then drawing a line that says, okay, this step's one, this is second.
Here's what happens is, let me jump in for a sec, Josh. What happens is, in manufacturing, when people do this process, where it originated from, you can see it. It's just such a visual process, right? You can see the steps in manufacturing. It's physical, it's real, and you can tell, and you have to physically move something a lot of times. When you get into the digital world, there's a lot that happens that we forget about, that we don't think about, right? We go, oh yeah, we get some leads. Well, there's actually a lot that goes on in getting some leads, right? Oh, then we follow up with them. Oh, okay, well, manually, do you have to export some data out of one system that you use to capture them and then put them in another to follow up? Is it done all the time? And then when they buy, is there more manual work that has to be done, right? And if that was in a manufacturing, we had to, leads, you had to pick up the person that you just attracted and move them into the next bucket. And then, okay, now you're going to sit in front of this other salesperson and they're going to talk to you about this thing, this video, okay, now we're going to put you in front of the product people and they're going to talk to you about a video, right? That would be very real. It would be very visual. But what happens is it's an email that shows up on your computer, right? It's sent out of a system that's triggered by an automation that was connected to, hopefully, a form that you didn't have to export and then import into somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And along the way, you hopefully know where these people are coming from, right? And where the leads are. So that's the idea going with that. I just want to put it in context, because why do you do this in this way? Is because you're trying to make a digital thing physical so you can really get a handle on what's going on.
And I'll give you the kind of the follow through. So with Como, we freed up the time for her to do more stuff, right? And so a call that we had just a week ago was, okay, I ramped up my marketing. I'm getting more leads, and I have too many leads to talk to.
Right.
That's a good problem, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, now what? I said, well, tell me about why tell me about them. She says, well, they're not all qualified. I said, okay, so your advertising and marketing and the whole process is driving you now twice as many leads as you had before, which is awesome. But, hey, the complaint was I spent my whole Saturday following up with people and none of them were qualified. I was like, okay. And, she was thinking of how we do this and, okay, we won't take as many, we'll have less. I mean, her schedule is full. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we filter out those who are, and do some more qualification than you already do? Mm-hmm. And, and sometimes you want to ask somebody, in this case is, are you a good prospect? Ask me these crazy questions. So we designed a set of questions that says, what do you feel, 1 to 10, what do you feel about this, this, and this? And depending on the logic, it's either you get to make an appointment or I appreciate your opportunity, but I don't think we'd be a good match. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? And, cut down the flow so that you're talking to the right people. We had this problem happening with another customer who's in the tech business. They were getting 500 leads a week. It was amazing. But they only had 3 people in the support department. Oops. So, and the funny part is they were doing no advertising. This was word of mouth and just, marketplaces that they were in and people were inquiring. So, the counter is, the people, they couldn't keep up with it. A lot fell through. They were talking to the wrong people. I said, why don't we ask them a few questions before they make an appointment or allow them to make an appointment? Well, those 500 leads went down to like 300. All right. And the 300, because we qualified them, some people go right to a demo, here, just go and get yourself a demo. Some people are like, okay, you need to talk to us. And some people was like, no, we need to make an appointment to larger accounts. So we're really qualified. But over a period of 90 days, they had more sales than they had ever had compared to the last 2 years combined. Because now they were talking to the right people. Because I said, if we just layer advertising on top of this, your problem's not going to get better. All right. And then, you take it to the next step and says, well, their support people weren't salespeople. They were good implementation, and somebody who wanted to buy it was good. And so, the missing piece was they didn't have a sales team. They didn't need one. They've been in business 10 years and have 10,000 plus customers. If I haven't had a salesperson this far, why do I need another one, right? But I said, you need to address the questions that these people have. Well, why don't we do a webinar, an automated webinar? So that way, people can watch, have a sales presentation, answer all the questions, and have one on every single different product. They had 44 different products. So, it was complex depending on, they were a connector type thing. So they connected A to B, and depending on which was on each side, there was a different methodology and different reasons you'd use it. So we created a webinar, which then had, all the commonly asked questions that were done through there. And then they either bought the product right away, or if they were qualified, they made an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
The call this was January of this year. They doubled what they did in the last 90 days in a month. And wound up that they were getting 40 hours of people a week watching webinars. That's a full-time salesperson. You didn't have to, but you only had you had to build it once, and it plays many. And guess what? It's still running. So now they have, they got smart, because instead of having their support team and having more employees and more, there's nothing wrong with having employees, but be human where it counts. Otherwise, automate. In their case,
let's actually bring that up after this story.
Yeah.
At the end of this, because I want to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah. Any more to add on that one?
But the idea here is we identified the problem using that Kaizen and Poka-yoke type thing. Is where's the problem? And then we had to think about how would we go about fixing it. Their comment was originally a webinar. Who would go to a webinar? I was like, you don't have a salesperson. You tried doing a group meeting and you get 50 people sign up and 10 people show up, and they were disappointed in that. I said, people are interested now. Let them decide, help them qualify. That takes it off your back. So, that success caused other problems. So, that pipe keeps going. Okay, now we got too many of these. Now what do we do them? It also means we had to go back into their processes and get them fixed. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot we did, but we look at how do we generate more revenue? How do you get more leads in, more prospects in? And then if you got that going,
and how do you do it with less human resources to make it happen and use technology to handle the busy work of it?
Here's the philosophy. The best business model there is the one that doesn't need you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Working on the business.
If you own the business, and the other process is if you also own the business, can you take a 6-week vacation with no phone and not worry about it? If there's automation involved and proper processes to follow, it makes it easier. I did it this year. I took a 6-week vacation. I disappeared. People ask me if I died. No, I went on vacation. I said, I'm not, I'm taking a digital holiday.
So before going into the subject that you wanted to dive into, Sam, I wanted to go back a bit because I want people to be able to touch on some actionable bits for their teams or their processes or their businesses. So for example, from our discussion so far, we know that one of the places where we can automate more things are in this lead capturing and then following up or filtering or scoring. So things that we discussed until now. And this goes into aligning marketing with sales as well. So it's a very good point. It's, it's somewhere where everybody or almost everybody can do a better job at, filtering this automatically. Now, what are some tools that you found useful apart from diagram? Sorry, I have it written down here. So yeah,
okay, no, you're right. Diagrams.net.
Diagrams.net.
I tell you what, we intentionally stay out of talking about tools. And here's why. And I'm gonna flip the script on what you just asked for a reason. People get caught up in their tools and they don't think about their process. Tools are great. The main thing you need to do is figure out, what do you need the tool to do? Mm-hmm. Not what tool should you get. Figure out what you need the tool to do, and then reach out to whatever the software is that you're using and find out if it does what you need specifically, very clearly. Understand the specs that you need that to do to pull off the function of automation. But don't get caught up in the tools, because tools are tools. It's like it's like if I were building a house, and we're pretty adamant about this, and you're like, what tool do you use to build that house? And I'm like, I got a toolbox, and it's like, I got a bunch of different types of drills, and like, they all drill. The main thing is that the battery stays charged long enough and that it works to go in. If it accomplishes that function, then I can put the screws in the wood and do that function of building the house. So the thing is, does the drill work? Does the tool that you're getting work? Does it work reliably? Does it have a good support team if it goes wrong? That's how we look at tools. Outside of that, Josh, you can add to it your thoughts, but we're pretty very much, it's just tools. People go, what tool, this tool, that tool. And it's like, look, there's a lot of cool tools out there. But and the other thing is, people get in, I'm giving you a little bit of monologue on my,
Go on.
This is my tool rant, but this is, people get all caught up in their tools, and then they have way too many tools, and half the tools they have overlap in the other. And now their data is in all these other tools because they're buying tools like it's going out of style. And they're like, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying this, I'm trying that. And then before you know it, you've got this mess of tools and you still don't have your process fixed or dialed or automated.
So
that's my take on tools.
One of the things when you start a project is with technology audit. What do you got? And here's a good example. One of our clients.
This is something people can do, and they should do. Everybody should do.
Write down everything that you use. Okay? We make a Google sheet or Excel sheet, whatever you use, piece of paper. We had one client that had 96 different software online tools that they were using to run their business.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's actually not uncommon. When you actually look at all the tools, not just one core tool, but all the tools you use to run a business. Literally, if you took one away, you would lose a function of what you do.
So in this case, when we were said and done, there was so much overlap, we were able to eliminate down to 36 tools. Okay? And there was one tool, when I use this as an example, they told me, we get, in this case, there's 500 new leads every month. This is an awesome tool. I was like, really? I want to know about that. Somebody else that we work with, it might be a good tool. And I said, let's look at that. I'm a curious guy. I know what generates 500 leads, especially when a lead is worth $1,500 a piece. To them, I was like, that's cool. We went to the tool, and then we looked at this month, and there was none. We looked back. We went 4 months back, and then there was a 500. And I said, so what happened for the last quarter? He says, I don't know. I said, you paid for it on a credit card, right? Why don't we check there, see if it's not expired? And he looked at it and went, you're right. It's not working, but they didn't tell me, or I didn't see the email, I said, let's see, 500 leads, your conversion rate let's just use $1,000, right? Your conversion rate is 30% of those. So, that's 15,000, 45 grand over the last 90 days. You're missing. It's not in your cash register, so to speak. I said, how much is the tool? He says, $100 a month. I said, I even pay for it annually and make sure it's on your calendar in the future. That $1,200 just cost you $45,000 because you missed the renewal, or somehow it stopped and nobody called up and said, "Hey, dude, you want to keep this going?" And so I would blame, so to speak, the software company that's selling it that says they don't have a process that says, hey, they lost the customer paying, in that case, but the customer lost a really big benefit. So that's when processes break, when you got too many, or in some cases when you have all these tools. I look at it this way. If you want to dig a hole in your backyard, you can use a spoon, a shovel, a backhoe. Right? Just depends on how big the hole needs to be and how quick you want it done, right? A backhoe, dig that hole in one scoop, done. It might take you 2 days to dig the thing with a shovel, with rocks and everything else. And a spoon, it might take you 6 months. So it depends on how quick you need to move that hole. What's the urgency? When people come to us and say, I have an opportunity and I need something to do this. Yesterday, one of our customers came to us and said, I did a big presentation in front of 5,000 people, and everybody wanted to buy, was willing to pay for me to put it up there, but I want to put it up there for 30 days and have it disappear, and they can pay access. I can't figure out how to do that. I said, okay, how much is access? Just curious. $185 to see this series of videos that are all a cheap presentation. I said, okay, give me 30 minutes. And I said, it's done. She said, how much is it going to cost me? Nothing. She sent me a tip. She said, I'm sending you a holiday tip. She sent $500. And I was like, thank you. We'll celebrate, go out to dinner, whatever. We'll have a fun time. But because we knew what needed to be done, and I didn't buy any tools. I used the tools we already had and just configured it. But the email for me was, I tried doing this for a couple of hours, couldn't figure it out. Can you look at this? And we went, yeah, here it is. Because we knew what to do, and we knew which tools and how to configure them. So knowing what your tool's capabilities are as equally as important, rather than going, let me go on the internet, I need another thing, and then you go and say, oh, this solves that problem. And you've now just added more complexity when it breaks, doesn't get paid for, or renews. I mean, if your audience is business owners and marketing people, if somebody leaves or takes a vacation and nobody knows how to fix that tool, or how did that tool work, and it stops, then sometimes people don't even know it's stopping. Anyhow, so there are many tools, and there are tools that we use. We'll be happy to have a list of them at the end or whatever. But I think that the biggest challenge that we see when we're working with clients is to take a step back and say, okay, let's look at the process. What needs to actually happen, and where can we remove errors, rework, okay, and speed up the process.
And Josh, you have a saying that kind of encapsulates that whole idea, where you take the focus away from tools and put it on the business.
Oh, be human where it counts. Otherwise,
well, there's that one. There's that one. But the other one that you've used for even longer, that you actually taught me, is just like, look, we're business people first, technology people second, in that order, versus technology people, then business people. Because if you try and just find technology to solve business problems, that's different than solving your business problem and then applying the technology to the problem to make it work.
No. So, you need to figure out your why before you do your how.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're trying to solve a problem around revenue or something like that, you got to figure out what is it that you have to do or that you want to try, and then apply the tool to get to your endpoint. The tool is just a means to an end. It happens that tools are amazing now. They're incredible, and there's lots of different nuances to talk about. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I don't mean to shut that conversation down, but I think for the marketer and the business person and the salesperson and the people who are involved in this kind of automation work, you shouldn't have a hard time going on Capterra or G3 and looking up tools to solve your problem in that space. What I would say we'd encourage people to do is make sure you don't lose track of your data. Keep your data in one spot and be able to track the effectiveness of what you're doing very, very clearly, because the lack of effective tracking is an enormous problem in the automation world. Mm-hmm. People say, I made a change. Globally, there's a difference. I don't know what actually caused that. So I don't know what to work on, what to improve. Where is my process? Could it be made better? Right. I ran a bunch of ads and made more money. I spent money and I made more money than my ads. Well, guess what? We had a gentleman that we worked with, spent $100,000 a year on advertising, Google ads, search ads. He came out ahead every year. It was profitable. That's cool, right? We all would like, everybody who runs ads would love to do that. But, you know, and the dirty secret is that's not the case. and that the deal is that once we actually put tracking in place, in addition to automation for that project, but once we put tracking in place to find out what ads were doing the work, right? Because when we talk about marketing, you got to find out what's doing the work. And when you ask yourself what's doing the work, the work is sales, closing new business. So what ad originated the business that actually gave you money, not just leads? Leads are great. Clicks are great. They can make you broke.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to be tracking that stuff and know which ones are driving sales. And we found that $20,000 of his $100,000 drove all his revenue.
As it happens, the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah. And so this was like and I'm not kidding about that. That isn't just like a blanket, it wasn't exactly 20, right? It was like 20, whatever was the number, but on average, $20,000 of his revenue. He wasn't a very creative advertiser. He just was a consistent advertiser. Mm-hmm. and he found something that worked, and it worked for him. It was an national moving company across the United States. And, so when we found that out, he was able to save $80,000 a year and put that, at that point you can do whatever you want with it. The smart person, if they have the systems to scale the business, they say, well, the $20,000 that's actually bringing customers and not just leads, why don't we take that other $80,000 and put it towards that? So now your business is growing. You're tracking it, you see the effectiveness, and you can see if that, as you invest that, if you tap out the market potential or whatever. But the key is know what's happening, because very few people, there's some, they're good, but people go, I got the data. And what I ask people is, can you make a decision? Like, can you make an actionable decision to improve your business? Meaning generate more revenue. Or get whatever action you want, get more conversions from leads. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, then you don't have good data, or your data is not organized in a way that you can use it. Mm-hmm. So the key is that any of these systems you put together for automation, make sure you can look at it and go, what does this mean? And what action do I take with the data?
So there's two.
We're going all over the place. You can kind of reel back in or adjust. But
in that case, the original problem was, I asked was, do you know what makes a sale? So you can so you can track where to spend on. And the answer was, he couldn't tell me. So I said, all right, let's look at the data. The data doesn't lie. So we took 10 years worth of data, right? And stuff that we had some tools. And I said, oh, hey, Stu, did you know, what could you do with $1 million? Could you buy a small island off the coast with that? He says, yeah. I said, well, over the last 10, 12 years, you've spent $1 million and you've just kind of thrown it out the window. I said, would you like to know how to take that? And, if you knew you could only have to spend 200,000 instead of $1 million to get the same result, would you be interested? He's like, yeah. What am I dumb? I was like, no. Okay. Let's look at the numbers. And conversely, we have another scenario where people are advertising. Okay. If you want, I'll just go down this pipe of technology, right? Multi-channel attribution, okay? Mm-hmm. In other words, you're advertising on Google, you're sending emails, Instagram, Facebook, people are seeing you all over the place. Well, the comment is, how do you know what started the sale and what closed the deal, the whole customer journey? Are you tracking all those pieces? An interesting scenario is one of our customers, they spent a couple $1,000 6 months earlier, And they said, you know what, that campaign sucked. We didn't get much out of it. Literally, it was not even a return, no clicks. And then, we put some tools in, and they said, hey, that campaign was interesting. Look at there's $200,000 of revenue that came in from that had no attribution on it. But we tracked it back to that original campaign. That campaign started out with an ad, then it went to a couple of emails. But I said, you know what? Why don't you try running that again? But the difference is that if you put money in, you'll get it out in 6 months, because that's how the process is.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that the seventh email after the retargeting, et cetera, actually closed the deal. But in the tool, it said, you made a sale and there was no cost to it. How did that happen? Well, let's look at the customer journey and say, look, you tried something, but there was a delayed reaction. And that just proves the fact that customers take time to buy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I'm very much with you on this one, and it's also something that we discuss with like every occasion with our clients as well. And everybody has been very positive about validating this. But indeed, and we can also Google Analytics is the simplest way where you can look and see, the multi-channel attribution, see how many sessions average were happening per user.
However,
I'll tell you
one little problem. It's good, but it misses one key thing. The recurring sale.
Yes, no, I'm talking about
tracking the attribution back to the recurring sale, which if you're a smart business, and most businesses can do this, there is an opportunity to create some kind of subscription or recurring sale in your business. And if that sale, you got to obviously know a couple of things. How long do they stick around on average once you get it going, right? What's churn? What's it cost you to get that in the door? And then how long does it take for you to make that money back and make it profitable relative to the advertising? Right? Basic stuff, hard to track largely, like we all talk about it like it's just, everybody knows their CAC and their, lifetime value and their churn rate. They don't, is the reality. A lot of people don't. They're missing that data. They have a sense of it, roughly, anecdotally, but they're largely can't point to numbers on a screen and go, this is it, this is it, this is it. And being able to track back, tie back the recurring revenue to where you can look at a dashboard and go, that ad brought someone in 4 months ago. We've made this much money from that ad spend. That's a big deal.
It is. This is also, it's very different from services or B2B to B2C. So I think the platforms are a bit different when you can go to
unless, how many services do you know that have retainers?
A lot. Yeah. A
lot. Yeah. Would that be a recurring sale?
Depends on how you put it, but if you were to add
well, look, did you have to pay to get that money again through another advertisement? Or a new lead? That's a recurring sale.
Depends
on how track that back to the original source. I'm not beating up on you, but I'm saying there's recurring revenue in businesses, and people need to know, where did that come from? What did I do to get it? If you don't know, then you're blind.
Basically, so to finish off the idea was for services, you can link back to your CRM, and then you can track the customer lifetime value and how long they have been with you.
But do you know exactly which ad that came from?
Yes. And
you help people do that, right? And so do we. Yeah. So if people don't, though, in their business, it's not an attack on you, but if people aren't doing that in their business, they need to talk to you, they need to talk to, us, or they need to go figure it out themselves on the internet, how they do that. Because if you don't know exactly what advertisement or content is driving these new sales, even if it's a combination of them, but there's something that people started on. And then there's something that closed the business, and there's the in-between. What's the mix? What's the cocktail? If you don't know what did it, then you're blind to where your business comes from.
There's one thing.
And it's hard to do.
There's one thing that I've seen, and I had this happen. We worked with one of our customers. Yeah. They did a television ad across multi-markets across the United States. And that ad went into, automated phone system that would take your money or send you to a live operator. And they had internet advertising driving leads. They had what was happening is we had people doing Facebook, people doing search, people doing TV ads, people doing radio ads. And the interesting thing was we put together some tracking. When we talk about technology, what's the pipeline? Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, here are the sales for the week. Every one of the different advertisers claimed that they made the sale. I said, how is that possible? Well, because what it is, because there was a touch to every one of those attributions along the way, mm-hmm. they all claimed to have closed the sale. But in some of the type of technology that we use, we can see which one started it, which one followed up with it. And the funny part is, I said, guys, Monday through Wednesday, I could tell you who started the sale, which ad from which source they came in first from. I said, but I can tell you that on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, what closed the deal was the follow-up emails. And some of them was the retargeting. I said, so you may have started the interest. That's the marketing part. But the spend, the biggest spend was hundreds of thousands of dollars in TV advertising. And they were trying to push, a couple $100,000 a week. Yeah, it's good revenue. I said, most of your ads are not closing. I said, the cheapy Facebook ads and the Instagram ads are doing gangbusters. But the markets that you're working with, I said, they thought they took an ad out on a football channel. And I was like, you spend a lot of money, but we got no sales from that. Home Shopping Network and the Home and Garden TV, it made more sales than the football show. But it took 3 weeks for those sales to close. So, but if you have data, and that in the marketing game, if you have data, then you say, this is what happened, and you can then repeat it. Mm-hmm. But the idea here was all those sales, when the ad ran and all that stuff, the automation drove all the things to the systems. No humans needed in most of the case. 20% had to go to an operator. The other 80% of the sales happened automatically. You went into the sales system, then got sent over. Then, it was like, okay, we got all these sales. Now, how do we ship them? I said, well, what do you use the shipping system? Let's connect the pipes so that the sale, when it's done, goes in the shipping. And then the next comment I got was, it was obvious. I knew it was coming, and they just weren't interested in listening up front, unfortunately. They said, the accounting person says, how do I extract the data from the sales system and I can account for it? I was like, well, why don't we just put it into the accounting system? Sales, shipping, accounting. So simple. And this is an old line company, been around for 30 years. And, their idea of integration was download, upload, download, upload. They had factories manufacturing product. But technology-wise on the internet, it was basically just an email. You got an order, type scenario.
Mm-hmm. I think also very important for you guys tuning in. Many of you, I'm sure you do this already. But when you look at, for example, this case study, and some of you I know are running TV ads or radio ads together with online, or maybe even magazine ads and stuff like that in print or outdoor. I think it's this is the best time where you can look back at your marketing mix and your campaigns and everything that you have planned for the quarter or for the half year, and try to map everything again to the customer journey and how or what you want that ad to do. We've just done this with our clients, and it was very, very useful so that they can track the right KPIs together with us, together with the agencies that they work with. And then, if you run a TV ad, certainly that's not going to be converting the same as a remarketing ad on Facebook, but that might trigger a search in Google that you want to be ranking for, whether it's online, organically through SEO, and then you have to make sure that the keywords that you want to rank for, you do, or if not, then run Google Ads so that you can still be in the first results for that category of product or services, and then try to map everything according to the customer journey and see where, like, to basically work a process around the lead generation element of marketing, and then as you guys were saying, to try to automate as much as possible across the board so that you can scale that up when you have the recipe and it's working.
So when you take that type of recipe that you're talking about is, let's talk about that. I'll talk about 3 types of touch points. If somebody comes to your website because you drove an ad, right? Mm-hmm. You can retarget them with a message to come back, right? Depending on what source you're targeting on, what platform. And then the next thing is they give up their email address and you've got a lead magnet, stop sending them that same retargeting ad. Change the message of, come take a taste, take a trial, take a demo.
Move them to the next step in the process, in the customer journey. Which isn't something we've really talked about, the idea of a customer journey relative to the rest of it. But anyways, judge off track there.
The next part would be is if they have taken that next step and given up some information, they've taken an action, all right? So now they did a demo, maybe they finished the demo. If you're doing retargeting, so you know how to do cold ads to that same person, you should now be helping them to say, you should be buying. This is a great thing. I know that as an example, I use this as an example. If you buy something from Zendesk, they may have changed their policies from a year ago, but I noticed this. You buy something from Zendesk, all right, and you're going to get retargeted for months to keep buying Zendesk. They don't upsell you and say, hey, you should try another service or you should refer somebody. I already bought. Why do I see your advertisement? You should know that I purchased already.
Mm-hmm. That's a data integration issue, like, just the way that they manage everything through. By the way, are you guys using any CDP at the moment, or helping your clients integrate CDPs? Do you have any recommendations or thoughts on these for our listeners? Customer data platforms.
When you say CDP, there's a lot of acronyms in this world. What do you mean by CDP? I'm not familiar with that acronym. Maybe I live under a rock.
No. I'm sure you know what I mean. So it's the customer data platforms where we can run omni-channel marketing from. So basically they are very useful in order to get the single customer view and to be able to integrate your multiple data touch points from all channels, and to basically know which customer went through or saw which types of advertising from you, what was their journey with you, etc. So you can dynamically move them.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Go ahead, Josh. Feel free.
One of the tools we use that can attach to any of those front end systems is a tool called Wicked Reports. Mm-hmm. All right, and
That's a tool worth talking about.
Yeah, that is a multi-channel attribution tool that will allow you to see your customer journey and also see the cost, every metric that you want to see along multiple channels, and it can feed it also straight into multiple CRM systems. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now it's totally integrated. Now, and it's simple. I don't want to say it. Once you learn how to use it, green is good, yellow is not so good, and red is terrible. That's when you set up your dashboard and say, okay, this is working, and you can actually see your ROI and over what time frame and where it's coming from, and what actually started the deal, what closed the deal, and how they went through the journey. So that is one of the tools. We're certified partners in that. We actually came upon that kind of the backwards fashion, and we help people understand their data. But the idea is that data comes out of your CRM system for names and sales, and can be connected to e-commerce stores and webinars and everything. So you can track I can track the fact you mentioned billboards and stuff like that. If you're collecting billboards in a code and it's going into a system, we can send that information back to those reports and say, it started from a billboard, then it wound up on a retargeting ad, and then it wound up from an email, and then it wound up to a sale.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, what was the journey? And you see these cockamamie journeys that people take to get there. And so the idea is if you can figure out where they start and what actually helps close the deal and what time frame it is, you feel better about, that happened. Or you can integrate you can track everything with a script that you put on there. And it's like, boom, you see more information coming into your system. The challenges, and I think you know that, is people need to learn how to drive that dashboard.
Yep.
What's the data there? So those people who are experienced with it, they go, aha. Those people who have never done it before will go, where do I start?
So now going back, like a bit back, but we might have already discussed what Sam wanted to say. But you, Sam, you said you wanted to say something and then I interrupted you. So
it's okay.
To this discussion, I want to go back to what you wanted to say then, because I think I know what you want to say. So
the thing I want to talk about is the idea of being human where it counts and otherwise automating. Obviously, that's our tagline here at Mobile Pocket Office, but that's not why I'm bringing. We have it for a reason, and it's the same reason I want to bring it up, is because I think one thing, and we talked about this very early on when we were in the podcast here, was that I think the thing that we learned through the pandemic is that, it's still happening, but that we really learned is that, yeah, you can do most of your stuff online, but people are still hungry for human interaction. They want that. They appreciate that. And now people are getting it less and less. And so the idea being that if you can integrate into your automation and design into your automation opportunities to remind you at the right time when to be human or automate it so it feels very human and it gets literally the same effect, that's a really good thing. And so there's examples of that that are really exciting of what you can do, right? Did I already mention the thank you card stuff?
Yeah, we spoke about it in the beginning.
Yeah. So we spoke about that. It's one example. The other example is, it is not free to send a thank you card. That costs money, right? And it's a cost that you have to factor into your total cost of acquisition. But one thing that doesn't cost that much money, other than just having a platform to do it on, is sending a personal video to people, thanking them, welcoming them, whatever you want to do at different stages of the process. Josh, you probably got it up on your phone there. I do too. We use a particular tool to do it. And again, the tool is not important. The tool is called Bonjoro. They happen to be cool people. We like them. But we can give you that link for people. But
yeah, definitely.
Show people how it works, Josh, real quick, because I think this is cool. This is human. And not only is it cool and human, it's helped people generate a heck of a lot more revenue.
Okay.
And I'll give you some numbers while Josh is showing you how to do that. Like, it's incredible.
So it's an app. Every time a certain type of lead comes in or a certain type of thing comes into our systems, it creates a record for us, says, hey, you have a new lead. And I know on this where they came from, why they came from, all the data that's collected is put in here. So I then can push that person's name. It says record now. I can say, hey, Sam, I'm so glad you replied to our website information about doing automation and specifically X, Y, and Z. I look forward to talking to you, and I know you made an appointment, and we're going to talk on Monday. See you then. Actually, I didn't record it. I had to hit the little record button. Hey, Sam, glad you made an appointment with me. I'll see you on Tuesday. Look forward to helping you with the automation. Boom. I hit stop. Actually, I didn't record it. I had to hit a little record button. Hey, Sam, glad you made an appointment with me. See you on Tuesday. Look forward to helping you with the automation. Boom. I hit stop. Okay.
So let me give you an example of the numbers people are seeing.
I'm going to send that, and now Sam's going to get an alert on his phone that he's got a message.
Yeah.
And he can reply to me too.
So let me give you an example, right? Let's say you have a product that's a consumable like coffee, right? You have an e-commerce store. Not a crazy idea, right? I think people can relate to that. There is a company out there called Ojo Coffee. They use Bonjoro. 14 weeks, they went from $35,000 a month in revenue from subscriptions to $75,000 a month in revenue from subscriptions And they found that in their case, their subscription customers average 20% more revenue than non-subscription customers. So that a strong incentive to, improve the number of subscriptions. Not to mention that it helps stabilize, what you can expect each month in their case for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the business took people into where they were roasting coffee. He was already there, and he just recorded a video of them doing it, saying, thank you, wanted to show you around and thank you for your business. And it was literally that simple, in addition to educating them that they could actually do a subscription, that was an option. People didn't know it. He just explained, hey, if you want to do subscription, that's an option. So that helped people move from non-subscription customers to subscription customers. And those numbers are, again, $35,000 a month to $75,000 a month in subscription customers. I mean, if that doesn't sell a tool like this and the little bit of time it takes to be human and investing in this, I give up on you, right? Like, people say,
and another tool that we're experimenting with.
But let me just add one more thing in there, Josh. Like, the key piece is that, well, how do you know, right? You've got to send that at the right time. Somebody purchases, they didn't get a subscription. You want to convert them to a subscription. As soon as they make that purchase, you want to thank them and educate them on the subscription and make sure that it's easy for them to take that action. So you need automation to tell you when to do that. And that's the key. Then you are human, it sends, it's automated, they get it, and they can go take care of setting up a subscription. So that's what we talk about when we say be human where it counts, otherwise automate. Things like that. Because they, not just for fun, but because they grow your revenue and they make for better customers.
That's the front end of the sale.
Yeah.
Back end is, I don't know anybody who doesn't love testimonials, right?
Oh, this is a great one. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. By, written, audio, or video, right? And most people forget to ask. So we have a little system that we're testing out right now, that during our process, when a purchase happens, all right, it says, hey, we record a video and said, hey, I did it the other day. And hey, I wanted to tell you, I wanted to say, what was your experience like? Would you do it again with us? They get the alert and they can record audio, video, or write a text thing back and say, here's my experience. And that happens every time we make a sale. And so we have collected hundreds of, I was on the phone yesterday with somebody who asked for references. I sent him 14 videos. It's on the page of people who, I didn't prompt them. They're not on a call. And they're like, her only response was, wow, that's impressive. And then we had a call, and it wasn't that, closing the deal was like, when can we start? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. So the comment would be is, there are people who do business with you, and they like what you did for them. And they're more than happy to give you a rant of how excited they were and what you did for them. But you got to give them an opportunity, and you got to do it every time, because they won't do it every time. But the answer is, if you ask, it's just using tools. So the answer is, you can hear me say, hey, Andrei, thanks for doing business with us. Appreciate it. Tell me if you would do business with us again. Just hit the record button. Send me a note. And next thing you know is like, thanks. So
yeah, but this is a good point. And actually, I think video testimonials are so underused at the moment as well.
Yeah.
And they're powerful. We all want to know, is this person someone that I want to do business with? Do other people trust them, right? And if you have videos that other people recorded about you, and they're heartfelt and real, and talk about what struggle they solved, I mean, that goes such a long way. So if you can put in your process, making sure that you're asking for those and you get more of them, that in your marketing and sales process, everybody knows that salespeople just want to sell you something, mm-hmm. right? What they don't know, if they don't have a way to find out, is once it's sold, is what the expectations that are set actually met. Do you deliver?
So the idea here when we talk about automation is make sure it gets done, all right, on a consistent basis all the time. And, regarding what you said, Sam, is I remember the story. My wife is corporate HR. They made a huge investment many years ago with another company she worked with in an HR system. And she really loved, they worked with, they interviewed different salespeople and products and all that stuff, and they made a decision. And she really loved the person she bought the services from. And then she never heard from them. She would have given them referrals out the kazoo. She was a happy customer. But, she'd call and say, hey, I never heard from you. Did you just, sell me and leave? So, they developed a relationship over almost 3 months. And then it was like, they just talked to implementation and customer support. So I look at it this way, is that salesperson, they spend $1 million on the system. I don't think that you sell $1 million systems every single day, just kind of like that. You have somebody who would love to tell you, hey, look, I talked to my friend who's also an HR person and they're looking for a system and I tell them about you. And she would get no feedback from them. Mm-hmm. And, did you hear from the salesperson? No. Oh, okay. No follow-up either. So that's more common than not. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's where using automation kind of as a superstructure for automation on a human. It lets you leverage your time more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then if we were to, because this is something that we try to do all the time on our episodes, as we get to sort of the end of the show or of the episode, let's try to make some actionable bullets or some like a priority list for people, because we discussed a lot of interesting things and this is not going to be possible to be done overnight. So let's try to prioritize and see where people should start and then how they can plan their actions maybe over a week or so that they can, after that week or after those 10 days, they can get to a better place.
Okay.
Well, let's go back to the beginning where we started, which was the very first thing you want to do is have everybody write down what they do for a few days. That's your very first starting point. In addition to that, write down all the tools that you use to accomplish it. With those two things, you know what it takes, functional, where you have to move data around, and all the tasks involved in doing it. And now you have an idea of your process and you have an opportunity to see what you can automate to save yourself time. And then from there, it's looking for the opportunities to improve the process.
Right.
Josh, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's another tool that I use a lot of times when we can actually do on site. It was a manila folder. This is a team, team exercise. Actually, you can do it today. It's called Where Does It Go? So I did this with a medical firm is where I developed it. I had a team of people and they were, they had a whole bunch of customer folders, and the person who was the sales administrator, it looked like a fortress of folders on their desk. So I said, okay, let's take a folder. And you're the salesperson. Okay, you get the lead, pass it to the person now you give it to. And we passed this folder around so that everybody knew what the process was. Their process is, who's got the red folder? You had 20 people. So I said, well, let's pass the folder around. And then the interesting thing happened was kind of funny. One of the persons said, oh, I need another folder because I give this person something to do and then that person something to do. So now it branched. So now we had to figure out, okay, here's the process. So at the end of the day, I had a process inside of a folder of who did what, then what they give it to, what they do to it, where did it go. So there's a couple of tools that we'll give you links on a page. Mm-hmm. First, it's called the personal activity log. What are you doing all day long? What are you messing with, and what could actually be eliminated if you think about it, take it up a few levels. And then there's doing a workflow, and I actually have a document that shows that whole mapping process we talked about, how you can use that. And you can use it online with the diagrams.net, or you can spend $20 and get yourself a big roll of paper and diamond, the sticky notes, and be able to do this visually. Because some people are not good with tools. Sometimes you got to learn the tool. Everybody knows how to use a sticky note and a pen, right? And then do it as a team effort. So, okay, what do you do? What do you do? What happens when? And everybody knows where. Oh, well, we do this way, but in these exceptions, we do it that way. And find where things can break. There's one other thing that we have a tool, okay? And this is where you explain to a newest person or the new person taking the job exactly what the job is.
Oh, this is great.
Okay, so it's a piece of paper, right? But the idea is you're trying to teach the new person how to do this job so that you don't have to do it anymore. Okay, training, right? So it's the process documenter. So here's the process document, but the process document is done by the person who does it today. How do I do this process so that I know, A, if I leave or I'm leaving, I got to tell somebody else how to do it, or if I'm a manager and I no longer want to do this and I want to hire somebody or assign it to somebody. Here's the process. So now you're starting process documentation. Okay? Ray Kroc, McDonald's, standardized operations manuals. And this goes back years ago, but every store has a process, everything has a process, and they sit you down with a manual and say, okay, here's how it works. And that way the person who's doing it knows how it's supposed to work or not work. And by doing that, these days, you can say, what could be automated, all right?
Yeah.
So, you got to say, what can we eliminate? So to put that in real terms, I had an assistant for 20 years that worked for me. And 10 years ago, she retired. And I went,
That's a great example.
What did she really do that was important? She had one function that she did that was really important. I replaced her $90,000 a year salary with a $3,000 a year piece of software.
And what was that important piece?
Well, we had a SaaS offering, and you had to take money. We dealt with corporations, so she would.
It was a custom enterprise SaaS.
She would sell it. Yeah, it was an online monthly subscription, and she was in charge of making sure that we billed them, they paid, etc. When she left, I didn't have anybody else that would do it. My technical team says, "Oh, we'll build some software." They said, "Oh, you won't." That means we're going to have to maintain it. Custom software's got programmers behind it. So let me see if there's some tools out there. And I found a tool that we used that did this. It collected the money, sent a signal, a webhook over to my system and said, turn them on. And then if they didn't pay, it sent a signal back to this thing and said, the credit card expired. Send them a note that says, please update your credit card. If they didn't update their credit card, it'd send them a series of emails over 10 days. Countdown, we're going to turn you off. And they didn't pay or didn't renew, it turned the system off. At that point, my phone rings, says, hey, how do I turn it back on? I need this. I say, it's no longer my responsibility. It's all automated. All you need to do is click the link, update your card, and in 30 seconds, the system's back on. So, it's been 10 years since I've actually had to do billing and collection and turning people on and off in a SaaS offering. That's pretty cool. But I replaced a human, right? Now, if somebody ultimately got turned off and I didn't hear from them, it sends me an email that says, call these people. They're a valuable customer. And it usually meant that somebody left the position, no longer works there, or they passed away, they moved to a different department. I just had to find the person who's now responsible for, using the service, because that person left. So I was like, oh yeah, we need that. Great. Well, we need you to put your corporate credit card in here and get it turned back on so you can use it. Wonderful. So be human where it counts, right? Otherwise, I saved $1 million over 10 years of an employee. Now, there was other services. I had replaced things with, other people doing stuff. But the idea here is you can use tools. You figure out where, I want to be, I want to be the laziest man in the world. Okay. How can I automate almost everything that is on and off, yes or no, type stuff or follow up, so that I can work with the customers who actually need to solve a problem because it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
You have a unique process. Some of them are not that unique. They just don't have any automation at all, or they have things that are not connected. So you asked about the personal activity log, using either the diagrams, .NET, or a sticky notes to actually document and work as a team.
Mm-hmm.
I have some recordings that we'll put out there for you for thinking about automation framework,
mm-hmm.
and kind of work through that Kaizen of what you should be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the process automation document. So if you're having to delegate something to somebody. And then the last piece is looking at your systems. And I remember the early days of Amazon where they took an order on one computer and they literally turned around and inputted it into the shipping department. That was like early days, right? The automation was a swivel chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
the automation increases over time, the level of what can be automated. Like, this is one level for those, where you got to turn the chair. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of manual work, and then you got to input it, But then you get to the level where it swivels, and that's a whole new ballgame.
Well, here's the key, all right? And I think any one of your listeners out there, if you've got something you do now and then, automation it may not be important, okay?
Yeah.
But the more frequent that you have to do it, and the more important it becomes, or the more volume that you get. And I remember an old commercial, it dates me, from IBM. And it showed a picture of a startup, and they had an odometer. Oh, we made a sale. They're all sitting around. We made a sale. Oh, we made 10 sales. We made 15 sales. They're all getting excited. And it clicked up to 500, 1,000. 15,000. And they went, oh my goodness, how are we going to get that done? So if you're scaling and you don't have systems, it's just a lot of human wasted time to do that. How do you get it all out the door? So now you may have gone from happy customers to, oh my goodness, we're overwhelmed. And just as fast as you were successful, you get bad reviews. Now it takes a few seconds, like, oh, that was a terrible experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the idea here is look at your processes, find out what can be eliminated. And in some cases, maybe somebody won't, I've been told that, oh, I'm here, I'm going to lose my job because you're going to eliminate me. I said, no, if you have valuable experience, redeploy that person to do something with somebody else, with people. So that, the repetitive nature of the job is taken care of by a computer.
So there you go. A few quick tips in 20 minutes.
Super cool. So Sam, if you can please send me on LinkedIn the link to the video testimonial thingy, so I can add it in the description of the episode as well. I also took some notes from our discussion, and guys, you'll find this in the description, or depending on where you view or listen to this, there will be on YouTube as well. Now, Sam, Josh, what are you guys planning for the year? Any big announcements you want to make, or, interesting stuff that you feel you can share?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. We got, we're just working on something over here. Josh, go ahead. Feel free to have fun with it.
Here's an idea that we're promoting for 2021. Stop asking, how do I do something? And ask instead, who can I get to do it for me? So find your who's and not waste time with your hows.
And remember, your who's can be pieces of technology.
That's right. So
they don't have to just be humans. And if you don't know how to use technology, don't learn it. Just find somebody else to do it for you, because it'll go faster.
Yeah, definitely faster. Cool. So where can people connect with you? Well, I mean, maybe there's already a couple of people that might want to look together with you at the processes that they have for their businesses, or discuss things, ask questions. Is LinkedIn the best place, or whether for your website? Oh.
You know what? The best place is, I mean, people can find us on LinkedIn. If you want to put our profiles in there, by all means, we'll respond to that kind of thing. But mobilepocketoffice.com, people can just go to the website. We've done a good job of making it easy to book a call with us to find out if there's a fit for the project. And the reality is, we're having some fun here, but we're not here to judge people in the way they do business. Look, if you've been successful in business, that's huge. And if you want to streamline what you're trying to do and you want to have a conversation, see if we're the team that may be able to help you make those next steps, we're going to have that conversation totally judgment free and just have a discussion and find out if it makes sense. And then from there, we do a blueprint session, and then you come out with what you would actually do with us. So there's that aspect of it. mobilepocketoffice.com. And
Sam, I think what we'll do is we'll also put up a link, mobilepocketoffice.com/marketiu. And that way, all the things that we talked about on the podcast that we mentioned that are available, we'll put links to it and downloads to it, stuff will happen on your site as part of the show, but we'll put them there so it's all consolidated and get that up so that people download them or look at them or listen to them.
Yeah.
Super.
So that's it. We're easy to get in touch with. We have automation, so if you want to jump on our schedule, you can just find a time. We've tried to make it very easy. You don't have to go back and forth with us via email. And you can just book something on our calendar, and we can jump on a call and see if there's something we can help you with. We're not a fit for everybody.
And if you don't really like to have fun while you're working,
definitely not a fit.
Good, guys. Thanks so much for all the time and for the input. Josh, thank you for joining us here. It was really
no problem.
And have an amazing year. Looking forward to staying in touch. And for you guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Any questions, as always, ping us at Marketiu, ping Josh and Sam if you feel there might be room for a partnership there, or if you feel you could be working together. And until next time, everybody have an amazing year. Make it one to count, and just live your best life. Speak soon.
Thanks, Andrei.
Cheers.